Hey guys, it's Vol. This time we're going to talk about an Infinity game in which I'm playing a limited insertion list, but it's not officially a limited insertion game because my opponent's not playing the 10 order restriction. So a limited insertion, of course, being this new format that is optional within ITS where you can restrict yourself to just one combat group, one order group. So I can't use more than 10 orders. Although you can still use lieutenant order and things like that, and proxies. Uh, I just want to say that most of my bat reps feature me using a lot of orders, and people starting to sort of notice that pattern now, and that is because I think it is just true that you're more likely to win in Infinity in the long term if you use more orders rather than less, because most of the scenarios require you to do a lot of things, press buttons, move troops around. Having one trooper on the field, even if it's a lower points trooper, means that your opponent has to spend short skills and suffer against AROs and things like that, and often the cheaper troopers just tend to be very, very useful because they have smoke grenades, or they're impetuous, or they've got chain rifle. So limited insertion is a really interesting format because it closes the gap between the powerful lists with a lot of orders and the perhaps less powerful lists that are only got a few orders, and people want to play those. Having said that, the drawback of limited insertion is that, well, some factions currently do like a single battle group, single group of 10 very well. For example, Steel Phalanx, and what I'm about to show you, Combined Army, and maybe Pan-Oceania, have some very efficiently costed troops profiles that they can really rely on and spend their few orders on to maximize, whereas I think Hakslam and Ariadna will suffer from that. So I don't really love limited insertion that much. I just think that everybody should play the normal format, and players that can use more orders in their lists probably should, if they're not comfortable with a lower amount. I also want to point out that in this list I'm using the Overdrawn Bat Droid, which is a new purchase for me. And what I've done is this isn't actually a very good photo of it because it's filtered through Prisma, but we'll see it a bit later. What I want to say about it though is that I've converted it, so I haven't glued the plasma sniper rifles on the back of its shoulders. I've just put in one missile launcher, one rocket launcher from the drones kit. There's a box you can buy where you get the two different drone types, and you can actually assemble the weapons depending on what kind of drone you want it to be. And because I didn't use the T drone, which has the smart missile launcher, I've got that piece spare, but I've only got one of them because I only have one box. If you're watching this video and if you have the Combined Army box and you didn't use the T-drone configuration and you don't want your heavy rocket launcher part, just send me a message, guys, because I'd happily buy it off you, and I'll be very grateful for that. Let's move on with this game. So we are playing on engineering deck, and my opponent is playing Aleph, and a lower number of orders, but not restricted to 10. I'm going to start off by just showing the hidden deployment photo that I took at the beginning of the game. This is actually a Noctifier back here, but this will give you a little bit of a better view of the table. He has won the role and chosen to pick table side and turn order. Sorry, not turn order, deployment order. So I have chosen second turn, just because my army is just going to be so resilient and so good at actually staving off that defense because I've got the Noctifier and the Overdrawn. I will probably put out a video later where I explain why I like the heavy rocket launcher Overdrawn the best out of the three profiles, but I won't go into depth on that now. But I will say that he's still going to be useful as an ARO piece, so to speak. So on the left here, I've got a Icadron, left to right. So Icadron, there's a Dr. Worm, a Unidron Fort Observer, there's a Dacheratsi chain rifle smoke grenade. I've got a as yet unpainted Mark Rep tracker with HMG. In fact, I'll just move my face. Let's get this out of the way. Perhaps I'll leave it up here. That's the engineering deck room over here, and this model, Miranda Ashcroft, represents my HVT. I am using a Silhouette 6 camo token here to represent my anathematic lieutenant, and I think the best profile for the anathematic is the lieutenant hacker. And the reason I say that is because as your lieutenant, you get to use mnemonica, which is such a good rule for avoiding loss of lieutenant. And being the lieutenant, on a potential Rambo profile, you can spin the Excuse me, a bit of a sneeze there. Excuse me. But being a trooper that is going to be quite order hungry anyway, you can spin the lieutenant's order on him every turn, and also with the hacking profile, he allows you to take the remotes in your list which you want anyway, which you need as a combined army. And he even has a killer hacker program on his profile, so he's not as vulnerable to killer hackers. They've got to get through 3 wounds, and he's whip 16, so he's not exactly the juiciest target for a killer hacker, is he? Because he's quite well defended against it. So I've got the secondary Unidron and another Icodron Batroid, and of course this is perhaps a little bit better photo of my Overdron here with the rocket launcher on his shoulder, and these guys here are just the markers showing the 10 bots. There's also the Dr. Worm Snake helper bot right here. On his side, he's got an HVT here, and apparently the net rods have to be placed on the side of the table because the scenario prohibits you from landing drop troops. We've got some sort of flashpole spot here and another helper bot there. In the middle of the table, he's got a baggage bot, he's got a bounty hunter with Spitfire, Myrmidon Chief, what's it called? Myrmidon Officer, chain of command. Another flashpole spot, we've got a Thurakatar with Feuerbach. I'll just move my cam. And there is a hacking Sophatect here with Combi Rifle. This is a proxy over here, specialist proxy. And this just shows you the battlefield from his right-hand corner. Another net rod down here. So he will be taking the first turn. There's a bit of a closer look on the look at the Overdron. As you can see, I've got the T-drone. I think that's what you call it. Rocket launcher attached to it, or effectively a missile launcher, but in this case, same thing, similar enough. Okay, so in his first turn, he is moving his Myrmidon officer to the building, and because it's chain of command, he's able to actually open the doors with it. And he's also going to move the bounty hunter down the stairs of this building here. When he declares that, I declare an ARO with my missile launcher here, and unfortunately I can't pick up more than one model with the blast. But the good thing about this for me is that if he shoots back, he'll be shooting at long range, so -3 from the Spitfire, plus another -6 from the TO Camo, plus another -3 from the cover, so he just won't be able to hit. Whereas I'm shooting at him before he hits cover because he didn't deploy like up against the wall, he planned on actually climbing down the stairs, so I'll need a 15. So you can see what a horrible situation it is against this Noctifier here, which is actually quite a scary arrow piece, even more so than the Hexa Sniper. And unfortunately though, just missed. Just rolled like a 16 or something from the Noctifier and just whiffed the shot completely. So that was kind of unfortunate, but still, at least he has to deal with this Noctifier now, and it's got a really good line of fire along there past the building here, the engineering deck room. So with the bounty hunter having survived, he now moves across the door, puts down suppression fire, and I just want to remind everyone that the engineering deck room has a saturation zone in it, so suppression fire in the reactor turn is only a 2 dice. But he still sets it up anyway. Also on this side over here, we've got the proxy pressing the button on the console to pick that up. So next up, he decides that, hey, with the DASU sniper in TO camera on this building, he's going to start taking shots at the Overdron. Now, I don't normally use ARO pieces like Overdrons and stuff like that because, you know, scenarios like this where a trooper with TO camo or something good could actually just fire at it. But one of the good things about this situation for me is that the Overdron is armor 6 plus the 3 from cover, and there's a slave drone nearby with the Obsidian, and effectively he's got to do 5 wounds to actually remove the Overdron. So doing 3 wounds will take it to unconscious, and then another wound will take it to unconscious level 2, and then the last wound will kill it. So for him to actually get that, and by the way, you don't lose the cover bonus when you're unconscious apparently, for him to actually get all of those shots through and not die, he may actually have to burn through his entire turn to do that. So I really didn't mind him shooting at me. He did have a couple of goes. He got 1 hit through, did a wound, and then the next hit saved all of the armor saves. So I denied him some orders there, and he didn't really achieve anything, didn't press any buttons, didn't improve his position. I can spend my active turn shooting back at him, but there's really no point. Even if he eventually does kill the Overdron, it'll just take him so many orders to do that I'm happy with losing it. And the other thing I'll say is that not every table will look like this as well. You'll get some tables in Infinity where you can keep the Overdron in a position where it can actually fail guts check back behind total cover. Couldn't do it in this table, but there will be some where your opponent just spends all those resources trying to kill it, and then it pulls back. The other thing I like about the Overdron is that one common tactic to remove these big heavies is to put the smoke down and then use the MSV to shoot them, but that's not going to work in the first turn with Albedo. So, and then in the last turn, in the final game round, if they're really going to spending so many orders to remove him, they may not be able to afford to when the objectives are really at high stakes for that last turn. Coming to my turn now, first thing is Impetuous with the Datcher outside, and he moves out here and throws his smoke grenade because he's now shot at by the Thorakitai with Feuerbach. So the Thorakitai needs a 12 because of my mimetism in his range, and I need a 17, but unfortunately I roll a 5, he rolls a 6, and I take the explosive round and die. So a little bit unlucky from the Datcher outside, but that's life. Only source of smoke gone, and that is one little disadvantage of this list, with only the one opportunity for smoke. Having said that though, the main bulk of this turn will just be spending orders on this Mark Rep tracker doing what she does best and just letting rip with the machine gun. So the Thorakitai is on this building up here. HMG just blasts him and makes him unconscious. For some reason he's left his, what do you call this thing? An Asura standing out in the middle of nowhere, like just in his deployment zone. And I was looking at that, I was thinking, oh, in his first turn, he was probably planning on using a coordinated order to move it into cover or just spend some orders on it, but he just didn't. So, hey, I'm just going to shoot at it. I mean, it's a 70-point model just sitting there. So the HMG just rips into it, and after 3 or 4 orders, it's just dead. And then, of course, the tracker can just move around here until it gets line of sight of the proxy, which press the button, by the way, and kill this as well. So you might be thinking, well, the Aleph player here isn't really, playing that well if he's just got model standing out in the middle of nowhere, and I agree, it's an oversight, but we can still draw some interesting learning from this game regardless. Now, my Anathematic is prone, but I've used some coordinated orders as I'm moving the HMG across to crawl it a little bit closer and behind this wall, and I've also got my Unidron over here to this objective to press the button on the console. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of that in the first sort of stages of the game, because if I leave it all to the last turn, I won't have enough orders to press all of the buttons that I need to, especially if I fail some of the attempts. So his turn 2, he's got a Myrmidon officer moving into the room, throwing down an Eclipse grenade just to avoid any potential arrows that might affect it, not that there really were any, and then pressing the button on the console to gain control of that. On his left-hand side, he's got another model here. I believe this is a Dactyl or another proxy. I can't quite remember what he was using it as, but she does press the button on this console. So he now has 3 buttons pressed to my 1, but I will have last turn, so it should be very, very easy for me to just retake one of his pressed buttons and win the game that way. So over here, this is a top-down view, bird's-eye view of my Overdron on the right-hand side, and there's also a bot here, a repeater bot, which has moved just up to the wall, and I can't see over that wall, but this is the console that I've yet to take. This is the one console we haven't actually touched yet, and he's moved up his repeater so that if I do move something close to that that's hackable, he'll be able to hack through the repeater. So then, again, a funny old move here. He's decided to move his remote over here. Apparently remotes can jump over walls. I didn't know that, so I learned something this game. So he does that and just takes a free arrow from the plasma carbine. Again, just not sure why he'd allow me that, but the plasma hits and he is destroyed. So nothing happening from that bot either. And then into the center of the room, he's moved his bounty hunter a little bit further forward and setting up suppression fire, so he can just reach both of these doors quite effectively with the Spitfire. So now, I decide that I do want to press this button here regardless on my right-hand flank. So what we're doing is we're moving the Mark Rep around. It was previously on this side of the building over here. Now it's moved around to this corner and just firing at the Dazyu sniper, which is over here. And because I've got my MSV2 and 4 dice, easily destroying the Dazyu. If this had been like a really whiffed attempt though, if I just fluffed it or if he'd got a crit, I would have had to really rely on taking the buttons on the other side of the table, which was doable. So now my Unidron moves forward to the objective, and he's got this repeater bot right here, remember? So what happens is that I press the button, I just allow him to hack me. Unidrons have BTS 6, so surviving the hacking attack is actually a little bit easier than you might think, just to look at these guys. Unfortunately, I'd made the mistake of thinking that Mnemonica would actually affect the Unidron even while the Anathematic was alive, which it doesn't. You have to actually have lost your lieutenant for that to have affected your model. So it's whip, I think 12 or 13. After several attempts, I finally managed to press the button, but I did eventually get hacked. I passed the BTS saves the first couple of times around, but not the final time. But hey, on that same order, I did press the button, so things worked out there. So he's also, to do that, revealed a TO camera marker on the top of the building, which was a proxy hacker, and now I know where it is. So at this point, moving with the last couple of orders in my turn, this is turn 2, Anathematic stands up and actually has a shootout with the, move the camera, with the bounty hunter here. Now bear in mind that when he shoots back at me, he is at a 0 range band because it's suppression fire. He's -3 for cover, -6 for TO camo, and -3 for surprise shot, so he can't hit me at all. I'm shooting back 3 dice down to 2 because of the saturation zone, ballistic skill 13, +3 for range, -3 for cover, minus another 3 for suppression fire, so I need 10s on 2 dice. Fired at him, he made the interesting decision to just do nothing because he wanted to wait for surprise shot to wear off and not lose suppression fire, even though it's only giving him an extra burst. So with 2 shots hitting 10s, I failed them both. Then we did another order and he shot back at me needing 3s to crit, and I shot at him again and still couldn't kill him. So that was really frustrating. The Anathematic goes prone again and he's still got his bounty hunter right there. So just a bit of another look at it. The angle across here, you can see the Myrmidon officers behind the wall right here. So now what he's able to do is open the door here. For some reason the robot is opening it by pressing a button apparently, and then we're having a look at line of sight now because he's got a model on this side behind the building which is just coming right around here, but as you can see from the laser beam there's a line of sight from the Overdron, so he can't really move past that. So to solve that problem, he moves the Myrmidon officer out here and throws an eclipse smoke right here in front of the choke point. Just move this out of the way so you can see said officer right here in the building, and smokes it up. Then he uses his doctor in the helper bot to come over here and revive the Thoracidae. And at some point the Thoracidae decides to stand up, which again, a decision I just couldn't really believe because the Noctifier shoots at him again. And again, he's firing needing like 3s or something like that, or something really low, whereas the Noctifier is just hitting him on 12s, and finally I roll the 8 and the missile just blows up the Thoracidae and the helper bot, so no recovering from that. I can see why he might have wanted to stand up, and I think the reason is that this guy does cover the side of the table, and this is going to be quite crucial for me to press the buttons. But what I would have done if I had been him is I would have revived the Thoracidae first and then walked along the wall to the right until, you know, you're at a point where if you stand up, you're not going to be in line of sight of the Noctifier. So there you go. So now it's gone to my final turn, and I decide the most efficient way to do this, given that I've got 2 consoles to his 3, is to press the button on one of his consoles, bring it back over to my side, so it's a 3 to 2 basically, and I'll get 5 points from that. However, as the game has gone on, he has managed to pick up 2 classifieds, and he's also in control of the room with 2 models in there, so it'll be a draw even if I do press one of the buttons on his side, unless I can either get one of my own classifieds, or kill the guys inside the room, or control the room myself. Now, if the Anathematic goes in there, it actually has to go through the front door, because it's very fat and wide, and I think it actually has to go prone through the main door, otherwise its head will hit the roof. So that could be awkward, given that the Myrmidon officer might hit me with an engage. And that would be pretty much all over for the Anathematic trying to spend any more orders if that happens, because of her prowess in close combat. So what I'm doing is I'm carefully moving around here, firing at the Myrmidon officer, who does have a boarding shotgun, Boarding shotgun, basically +6 to hit, -6 for the TO camo. I'm shooting, needing again like 10s, unfortunately, or even less than that, like I think 4s because of his ODD. He's got cover there, so I decided to move past, took the boarding shotgun. It does a wound. I've got 3 wounds to survive this turn, so I'm not too worried about that. But importantly, moving past the door, the bounty hunter has been killed when I started the turn. So just going back here, when I first set up the anathematic, I did fire another shot and managed to get him eventually. So the plasma cuts its way through. And now moving over this side here, I can actually get to a point where I get the Myrmidon at long range. So this time the Myrmidon needs a much lower roll to hit me, and I'm hitting on, again, 10s because +3 for range, -6 for ODD. So on 2 dice with 10s, a bit easier to take her out at this stage. And then getting over there, where are we? Oh yeah, this is just a bit of a view of the background. So I've failed to take a photo of this, but the anathematic actually goes and presses the button over this side of the table, and then comes back around his side. This is the wall on his side of the deployment zone, and the plan is just to creep into the room. I've also used one of my unidrons. I'll just click back until we get to the right photo. See if I can find it. In fact, let me just bring up the... where was he? We had a unidron. I think you guys remember the unidron I'm talking about anyway. He was originally... Man, this is really slowing the bat rep down. I've killed my momentum. It was this guy over here. And you might remember the point where I actually shot one of his drones. So this point here, where he moves his drone around and gets shot, the forward observing unidron can now actually just kick in an order and use telemetry to pick this up. So it gives me a classified. So that will mean that if I get 5 points from the consoles plus the classified, I'm on 6, and if he gets the room plus 2 classifieds, he's on 5. So that will allow me to win. So just going back again, once we get to this other stage back here, and you've got the anathematic moving out. At this point, I've actually managed to win the game 6-5, but I want to see if I can score some more points. So we're now trying to move the anathematic into the room. He's getting shot at by an adhesive launcher, and the Myrmidon decides to arrow with the smoke, hilariously enough, allowing me to get into the room a little more easily. But eventually the anathematic does creep into the room, manages to get a couple kills on the way, and it allows me to actually score, I think, 9 points to 2. Because now I've got the consoles for 5, 3 for the room because the anathematic's worth more points than the Myrmidon, and I've got 1 classified as well. So interesting game. I don't often play with just 10 orders, but I'm really happy with the way that this list deals with the orders so efficiently. When you've got the anathematic specialist and lieutenant, you've effectively got 11 orders because of the lieutenant order. And with Whip L16, it's much easier to hit the objectives. You easily get around the table because of TO camo, and if you get hacked, well, you've got the sucker punch there as well. He's pretty good at shooting, which is a shame because the other anathematic profiles that I really like, the Spitfire profile and the Sepsitor profile, are really amazing as well. And unfortunately, to take them, you're missing out on the lieutenant and the sucker punch. So this is the best profile for it, but I definitely love to build some lists around the other profiles, maybe using a Nexus Lieutenant Hacker. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at the 10 order combined army list, and yeah, hopefully you got something out of this game. I learned a couple things, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one.